Alright, welcome back to the second part of Power BI the easy way. Let's get started. Now, one more thing we would like to do with the table before we can go on with the next visual, of course, is we can currently see the visual, well, the revenue in the visual as a 3,900, for instance. But, of course, this is not formatted, right? For instance, I could say, okay, what is this? Is this euro? Is this dollar? What is it? So what we could do is we could format the revenue. If we want to format a certain specific column, we would at first select the column, for instance, the revenue here, click on revenue, and then under modeling, you find here different kinds of formatting options. And for instance, here for the currency, I could say these are US dollars. So I simply click on the currency format here, like that. Okay, and here we go. And I would say these are, in this case, dollars, United States, and I click on it and just wait, and now it's formatted, right? So now we can see the revenue here as well. And of course, we would have to do this for each of the different kinds of columns, okay? For instance, if I want to see, currently I see revenue, and if I also want to see the profit, I click on profit, and then I can see profit next to revenue. If you want to switch the order, all you would do is simply drag profit and place it above revenue, and you can see now profit is in front of revenue, okay? So it's pretty easy to do that. And of course, as I said before, if you want to style it, for instance, also US dollars, you would have to do it exactly the same way as we did for revenue. One thing to mention here, because this often happens at the beginning and also happened to me when I first started with Power BI, is if I deselect profit here, if I got my table in here, and then, for instance, I deselect the visual, and then I click on profit like that, then of course I would create a complete new visual, okay? So please keep this in mind. So if you want to add something to a specific visual, at first always click on the visual itself, and then simply click on the specific column, or the second option would simply drag and drop it, okay? As I've seen before, we could either, if I select it, I could either click profit like that and then see the profit, or if I deselect it, I also have the option to simply use profit and drag it into the value section like that. And you can see it works exactly the same way, okay? But Power BI is user-friendly, so it really tries, if you only click on a specific column, it already tries to guess what you want to do. And in case you have a table, it's pretty simple, because you simply add it here like that, okay? So back to this visual, actually, what happened here, the reason why Power BI by default created a bar chart is we had a numerical value, okay? Because there are, now, actually, you have seen all three of them. There are three default chart types in Power BI. Whenever we use or create a visual using a string, for instance, product name, by default, it creates a table. If we have a numerical value, by default, it would create a bar chart. And if we have a geographical field, for instance, like that, the globe icon, the country here, by default, it would try to create a map. Okay, these are the default settings in Power BI. However, we can change any visual at any time. For instance, I could say currently profit is a bar chart, but I only need to select profit like that, and then I can say instead of a bar chart, let me see, for instance, this as a card, right? I can simply click on card, and then this chart simply, well, switches to a card, okay? And now I have a card in here. So that's pretty easy to do that. All you need to do is select a specific visual and then change it to the specific card you want to see. For instance, I see the profit here now, but let's say I want to see a donut chart, right? I can click on donut chart here, and I can see a donut chart. However, of course, I have no dimensions in here, so currently I only see one donut chart. But maybe I'd like to switch this. I would like to see this, for instance, for the specific countries, right? So I can simply use countries here, and I can either drag it into my, in this case, the option here, the field option pane, or I can simply click on it. And in this case, I'm pretty lazy and want to make it easy, so I simply click on it. And you can see now I can see the profit for the specific country, okay? Starting from here, United States, then Spain, India, Norway, and so on. So you can see all the different kinds of profits. And the reason, by the way, Italy is actually not visible in here is simply because Italy has a negative profit, and that's why it's not shown. Okay, so let's actually switch this. That's instead of the profit, maybe you would like to see also the revenue. So let's go in here and switch this and say I want to use I want to get rid of the profit in here. And instead, you can see currently I can't see anything because a donut chart without a numerical field doesn't show you anything. But you can now select the revenue column and select revenue, and now I can see the revenue for all the different kinds of countries. Okay, and I can simply drag it and place it somewhere, for instance, like that. And then, of course, I have exactly the same option. I go to the format pane here, and I can decide how I want to actually style this visual. For instance, currently I can see here, I can play around with the data colors, and these are, by the way, the default data colors in Power BI. Now, most of the people, at least from I met, do not really like the default colors. So what we can do is, you already seen this in the last video, we can always switch the theme here. Okay, I can simply say here, switch theme, and then I could say I want to see it, for instance, here as the colorblind safe. And if I do this, now I can see now these are the default settings, okay, for the colors. And if you don't like this as well, of course, you have the option then to import any theme you like, either from the gallery. You can simply click on this and take a look at the different themes which are available for free in Power BI on their homepage, or you can also create your own theme if you want to do this. And of course, this is especially helpful if you have a company and you have your company colors, right? So for now, I have my revenues here, and the only thing I want to actually do there here is, or two things. Actually, I want to get rid of the title. Currently, it's a little small here, but I want to deselect the title, okay? I deselect the title, and then beside actually the name, I also want to get some values here, some information, right? So what I can do is I can go to detail labels here, and if I make it here, extend this, I can say instead of the category, only the category, I want to see more. For instance, I want to see the category and the percentage of total, like that. Then I can also see the percentage figure, or I want to see the category as well as the data value and the percentage of total. I can select this, and now I can see also, sorry, all detail labels, here it is. And I can see now the name of the country as well as the revenue as a dollar amount as well as the percentage of the total, okay? And of course, I have the option then here to make this, for instance, black, and I also can make this a little bit bigger so you can see everything like that, okay? So I have these options, and depending on how big my visual is, I can simply make it a little bigger in here. What I can also do is I can now create, for instance, a card. I select the card, and I select the total revenue. I click on total revenue here, create 70K, and then what I want to do is I make this a little bit smaller, like that, and then I use this visual and place it maybe somewhere here, okay? And that's why I said pixel perfect, because currently you can see it's not exactly in the middle, but of course I do not only have the drag and drop options here. I could again go to this visual and then go to the formatting options here, and then I have, for instance, in the general settings, I can play around with the X and Y coordinates simply to place it exactly where I want to place it. Beside this, I also have, of course, if I select the visual at first, I have the option, if I go to format here, to use the default or these things which you should be familiar with from PowerPoint, right? So, for instance, in this case, currently you can see it's on top, but maybe I want to send it to the back. Then I can simply click on Send Backward here, and now I select this one. Now you can see if I hover over it, I can't select this one in the middle anymore, right? Like that. Okay. Beside this, what I also would like to do is maybe I like to also see, let's say I want to see the profit for different countries in a bar chart. So I can simply be aware, always first deselect the specific chart here, because otherwise you would overwrite basically the chart, right? So first click on an empty space on the canvas, and then what you do is you simply select a new visual like that one, and then I say I want to see the profit here, right? So select the profit, and then I want to see this for the specific countries, for instance, right? So I can select this one, and now I can the profit for the specific countries. And again, we can format that. We simply need to go to the format pane here and say, for instance, I want to see the data labels. So I click on data labels here, and then beside this, maybe I want to place them. Maybe I want to, as I said before, I want to. Here you have the option to display different kinds of units. Currently you can see it's K for 1,000, but maybe I would say none, because we have small amounts here, and now you can see it's these small amounts. I can also make this a little bit bigger, like that, maybe like that, okay. And instead of this, beside that, I also want to maybe place it somewhere, like auto. Instead of auto, I like to place it maybe inside center, like that, okay. And now you can see we got the numbers here within the visual itself, okay, like that. And of course, select it again. We have different options here, right? So the data labels, currently you can see this little, sign here, this warning sign. The reason simply is because I currently made the text too big. So you can see now it's gone. It's simply because if you make the text too big and it doesn't fit into the bars, and I want to place it inside the bars, then of course it's not possible to make it any bigger from size here, right? Just this as an information here. Like that. And beside this, a third pane, which we have not talked about so far, just as an information here, is we also have this analytics pane. For instance, you could say, now I have my visual here, and I like to say what is actually, the average. What's the average profit across all the different kinds of countries? We can simply say under the analytics pane, use an average line here, click on average, click on add, and you can see now we got an average line in here. And of course, we can set transparency for this average line. We can select different kinds of colors here for the average line, maybe black here like that, and of course dashed, what kind of line style, and so on. Okay, So data labels also on maybe, and you can see 460 is in this case the average. Okay, so you can play around with this if you like to edit. If not, also fine. But I just wanted to show you there are a lot of different customization options for your charts. Okay, and it's pretty easy. Really, you need to simply select and deselect what you want to see and what you don't want to see. Okay. Beside this, of course, if I go back to the formatting pane, we can see currently it's all in the same color. Of course, we have the options under data colors here to specifically decide show all, for instance. Then we could decide which country should have which color. Okay, so we can really select it by country. Or if you want to do it, well, on, for instance, a formula. For instance, you would say, I want to calculate this specific by a formula. Maybe you know conditional formatting from Microsoft Excel, of course, right? Then you simply open this, advanced controls here. And if you do this, then this window appears. And then you can say, for instance, I want to format this in this gradient color style here. And you can say for the sum of profit, that's fine. Sum of profit here. You can also select different kinds of options here. So for instance, you could say also use, for instance, the revenue column or the amount column and use this as actually the gradient coloring for the profits. Even though maybe here it doesn't make too much sense, but you could do it. So sum of profit, that's fine. Sum, and let's say the highest value, and now I select the highest value, maybe this screen here. And if I simply close this, and for the lowest value, I might use maybe this value here, like that. And then I can click OK, and you can see now I got this, well, gradient coloring here, right? So that's an option we can do. We don't have to do it, but we could do it. Okay. Beside this, maybe another chart which is often used is this waterfall chart, right? So you simply select a specific visual waterfall chart. We got it in here, and then we could say, for instance, I want to see this for specific countries again. I can simply click on countries, select countries here, and you can see increase, decrease, and total. And then I'd like to see the profit, right? So select profit, and we can see we got already our first waterfall chart. Like that. We can drag and drop it, and place it somewhere on the screen, right? So beside this, of course, we can always go to the formatting options, and then most of those options are oftentimes the same for different kinds of visuals, depending on the visual, for instance, right? For instance, the bar visual and the waterfall visual have more or less identical ways how to format this. Even though there are, of course, here, for instance, sentiment colors are additional ones, because increase, decrease, and total, these are simply those colors in here which we can format then. The order here can simply also be changed. For instance, we're starting here with United States, because the reason we start with United States here is simply by default it's starting with the column with, or actually the entry with the highest profit in this case, right? So we can simply click on this dot, more options, and then you have the option to sort by. For instance, we can sort by profit, which is currently highlighted, but we also could sort by country, for instance. If we select this, then we can sort by country, right? So these are the options you have. Of course, you could also sort from Z to A is here. You can also sort from A to Z, and then we start with India. Okay, so it's totally up to you how you want to do it, but these are the options you have by default in Power BI. Okay, like that. And let me actually go deselect this. Okay, so if you're gonna, let me go back. Actually, let me use the back button here, and we got. Let's use this visual. Okay. Or like that. And only one thing I would like to do, because I did it here as well. Well, here not, but let me just deselect the title in here, and also let's go in here and let's also deselect the title. Okay. Oh, now the last visual we actually have already created. This is the card, right? So in this case, the globe, because I wanted to create a map, and I can simply then click on the country icon. Be sure at first I deselect this one, and then I simply click on country here, and I got my country in here. So my colors, and I make it a little bigger here, and can see my countries within my visualization in here. Now, beside that, of course, we can also use the size. For instance, currently you can see they are all the same size. And again, we can use a numerical value, for instance, the revenue, and drag this to the size. If we do this, then you can see now we get different kinds of sizes, and we get also a tooltip by default, for instance, the revenue. If you want to add additional things to the tooltip, all you need to do is use a specific column or information you want, for instance, the profit, and simply drag it here into the tooltip as well. Okay, if you do this, then and you hover over, you can see I got now the country and the revenue, which are by default in the tooltip, because these are, well, actually the fields we use to create the map, but also I drag the profit inside the tooltips, and now I can also see the profit if I hover over the specific field. Beside this, we can click on the format here, and here we got additional formatting options. For instance, the category, I can add this, and I can see the names of the different kinds of countries if I'd like to do this, right? So let me select this again, go in here, and then of course we have the option to play around with the text, make it bigger or smaller, and of course the transparency, the color of the well, the font itself, right? Or also the background color, which is black currently, but of course you can also change this. So as I said before, it's really, really customizable and really easy to do. All you need to do is really select and deselect what you want to have. Beside this, we have map styles. Road, for instance, currently selected. Of course, you could also say, for instance, light, and then it would look like that. You could also say dark. It's a little bit more different to the first one, and so on. Aerial, and so on. So different kinds of options here. Road again, or always, if you want to go back, revert to default, then you get the default style again. Okay. So for the bubbles here, you can play around with the size of the bubbles. You can make them bigger or smaller if you like. And for the data colors, you also have the option again to show all the colors to make it different, and as well again the advanced control options, which you have seen how they work in here in the bar chart. And you can also do exactly the same kind of color saturation, well, differencing within the map using this one, based on either a color scale here or based on a rule. So it works exactly actually as conditional formatting in Excel. Okay, so pretty easy to do and to create those visuals. Now, the final part is, what if you want to filter the data now? What you can do is, you can either create a slicer. You can select a slicer here, for instance, and you can select a specific field you want for your slicer. For instance, let's say the product, right? So now I can see my products, different kinds of products here, and let me make this slicer bit selected, make it a little bit, yeah, I've already selected something, Huawei currently, I deselected, and now I can see all my data. If I only want to see, for instance, Google Pixel, I select Google Pixel here, and I only see the data for the Google Pixel, okay? And all visuals are filtered. You can see it up here, but also these ones, or the waterfall chart, and so on. If you want to select more than one, you can simply hold Control key and select more than one. For instance, Google, Huawei, and the iPhone. And I can see the data only for these 3 specific products, okay? And of course, the slicer is customizable as well. If you want to make it bigger, for instance here, if you want to deselect the items, here are the items. You can make them a bigger text size if you like. So it works exactly the same way, okay? If you want to get rid of the slicing selection, simply click on this little icon here, clear the selection, or deselect them individually. You can also do that here. Okay, let's do it this way. Okay, so this would be one way. The other way to filter actually your report is actually use a specific visual. And that's the great thing in Power BI, because everything can act as a filter, okay? So for instance, if I want to see data of the United States, I could simply click on the United States in this icon here. So I can, and now I can see all the data is filtered to United States. If I click again, then I get my default view again. If I click on Norway, I can see all the data for Norway. And it doesn't only work here, I could also do it here. Okay? For instance, if I want to see data for India, I click here on India, and all the data is filtered to India, right? And this works exactly the same way as the slicer. If I click Control key and also select United States, then I can see the data for India as well as the United States, okay? And if I want to get rid of the selection, what I would do is click on the first one, and click again on them, and now I can see my original view again, okay? And this is really a great thing. As I said before, almost everything acts as a filter, okay? If I click Sciamo here, you can see the table works as well. If I click on the waterfall chart, for instance, on Italy, I can see the data for Italy. One thing you might see here is might appear is that all the rest of the data is only grayed out, right? Currently, like that. You can see it's still the whole data, but it's grayed out. If I select Italy, for instance, or if I select United States, the other parts are grayed out. So if you want to filter like that, you can keep it this way. If you only want to see the data which you actually selected, then what you would do, if I deselect this first, you select a specific visual, and then you go into here, the format pane here, or format ribbon, and go to edit interactions. So if you click on this, what you see is now these little icons appear on top of each of the visuals. And depending on the visuals, different icons appear. But here you can exactly decide how you want to filter the other visuals. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, now we currently have selected this waterfall chart, right? And for instance, I could say for the waterfall chart, if I select a specific country, I don't want the map to be filtered, so I simply deselect it. So I click none. Okay? But I want to see only the data for the country I selected here. So what I will do is, instead of this one, this highlighting, which is doing by default, I select filter, okay? And if I do that for this chart, and also do it, for instance, for this chart here, like that, then watch what happens. If I now select United States, I can see that those two visuals are exactly only showing data for United States, okay? Because we set it to filter instead of highlighting. So if we select this again and set it to highlight, you can see that I see United States, but I also see all the others, but they are only grayed out. They are still visible. So if I want to only see United States, use the filter, okay? And you can see by default, if I select something, for instance here, if I select India, you can see the data is filtered to India, but the map itself still shows the whole data because we have selected none for filtering, okay? So that's how easy it is to do that. However, one little drawback, just need to mention that, of course, if you want to do this, you would have to do it for each of your visuals individually, okay? For instance, if I deselect this, and if I select this visual here, like that, and of course, select edit interactions here as well, then of course we would again have to, for instance, here use this as a filter. Otherwise, of course, we would only highlight it. But now, if you use it as a filter and click on it, it's filtered. If you don't do it, for instance, again, use only the highlight here, and I click on it, I can see still the rest of the data, but it's grayed out, okay? That's something you have to take into account. You have to do it individual for each of the visuals. But that's how you would do it. And as soon as you have it done, simply click on edit interactions again, and those options disappear, okay? Let me just drag this in the middle, like that, okay. And yeah, that's it. That's it, how easy it actually is to create a report in Power BI. So it was pretty easy, right? So hopefully you followed along, and now I just can encourage you, do your own thing. Use this data or use your own data and simply start creating your first reports. And hopefully I can see you as soon as possible in the next video. Until then, best guys.